You're listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience, a podcast dedicated to helping executives train their sales and marketing teams to optimize growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. Let's accelerate your growth in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone, to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. I'm Carlos Noche, and I'm joined by my amazingly talented podcast partner, Lisa Schneier. How you doing today, Lisa?
Doing good, Carlos. How are you?
I'm good. It's hat day, so it felt pretty good.
Yep, hat day. Yep.
We unfortunately never told Guy, so sorry, buddy. Today, we're talking about the signals that drive revenue, the secrets that make revenue more predictable, and aligning your go-to-market teams to win more with less.
And to help us out with that topic today, we have Guy Rubin, who is the founder and CEO of Ebsta, a dad of 2, enthusiastic skier, an avid football fan, even though he supports Tottenham Hotspur. Don't hold it against him. He's also passionate about helping B2B sales teams scale their revenue engine. Guy, thank you so much for taking the time today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. Long-time listener of the podcast, so really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks, Guy. All right. So, Guy, the off-the-wall question we always use to kick off the podcast is, what is something that you are passionate about that those that know you through business might be surprised to know about you?
Well, I think Lisa already picked up on it. I'm a massive football fan, or for our American listeners, a soccer fan. And I spend a lot of my time taking my young son to soccer games. So yes, I'm a big Spurs fan. So we can get all of those Arsenal fans are going to be switching off right now. But we also go to a lot of lower league games as well. So I love watching anything with a ball. And I've got a 13-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. So we spend a lot of time playing soccer at home.
I was just going to ask if they were into it themselves. So you play at home, do they play at school?
Yeah, no choice, I'm afraid. No, we live and breathe it. And so my son wakes up with a ball on his feet and goes to bed with one as well. So I wish I suppose I'm putting my aspirations to become a professional footballer all on my son now. So it's all up to him.
That's what kids are for, right?
Exactly.
Carry out the dreams we didn't get to. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about you. So first question I'll ask, so why Ebsta? What's behind the name? Tell us the story.
Well, okay. So my business partner and I have been working together for over 20 years. I suppose I consider that we're both data geeks. And when we started the business, we really focused on trying to solve a real kind of dry problem in the market, which is that trying to turn the CRM into a system of record. And in a world where salespeople are responsible for logging their own activity, creating their own contacts and keeping them up to date, you won't be surprised to hear that pretty much every business we've ever walked into has less than ideal quality data in their CRM. So the first product we developed is what we call relationship intelligence. And we built an engine that can connect to a company's mail servers, their calendars and email traffic. And we're able to go back 1, 2, or 3 years and build a profile for every contact anyone in the business has ever exchanged an email with or had a meeting with. And behind that profile, you get an audit trail of activity. But unique to us is we give each one of those relationships a score out of 100. And that's what we call our engagement score. So we built our original product to really just solve that problem of logging the activity, creating the contacts and keeping them up to date just by monitoring the traffic going on and the activity of the users on the ground. Very quickly, it became apparent that the opportunities that were being worked on that had the most activity, that were the most multi-threaded or had the most engagement were the ones that were winning. So we went down this rabbit warren around everything which we now call revenue intelligence. So trying to understand all the signals around the business that have historically influenced revenue. And then a couple of years ago, we launched our own revenue intelligence platform that sits inside Salesforce or inside HubSpot. And I believe we're the only plug-and-play solution in the market that works in that way. And we help you understand the signals that have in the past led to revenue and use those benchmarks to identify risk in the live pipeline. And that's kind of the second product we came up with. So to answer your question about the name, Ebsta comes from the idea of analyzing all the signals or the ebb and flow of sales data is where we came up with the name. So hopefully that helps to put that question to bed because we get it all the time.
Definitely. Well, it's a unique name, and so that's a great overview of Ebsta and how you came about, and what you do and how you came about. Curious, also personally, like what led you to building this business? You said you've been working with your business partner for 20 years. What led you to meeting and deciding that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, our first business was in the recruitment technology space, and we were looking at solving the problems of around the data in recruitment businesses, and they were obviously get a lot of resumes, and so when we left that business in must have been 12 years ago now, we wanted to do something adjacent, but in the wider sales market, and we saw this big problem around data. Everyone had the same challenges around this inconsistency of data because they were still relying on reps manually logging their own activity. So fast forward to today in 2023, if you're still running a sales team where the reps are responsible for manually logging their activity, not only are you probably wasting, up to a day a week doing that manual admin, but you're nowhere near going to have the data you need to build a predictable revenue engine. You absolutely need some technology in place. It doesn't need to be complicated. It's not a lot of change management because we're not actually giving anyone any new buttons to push. But actually, by going through the historical traffic and having an engine in place that's logging all of the activity and building contact records in your CRM for you and telling you who in the business holds that relationship and when they last engaged, you can see the trend or the ebb and flow of those relationships over time. And it means that you can now start to build the insights you need to become more data-driven and scale your revenue engine.
Excellent. So, Guy, I didn't tell you this ahead of the podcast, but I sold CRM for almost 13 years. I joke around. I go, I used to sell CRM before people could spell it. And you're right. I mean, it had a great promise, but it is dependent on people being willing to have the discipline to capture different data points. So I think you're onto something there. How are you able to, capture those data points? Because let's face it, sales reps are not always in the office sitting in front of their computer doing something. So how do you deal with the fact that these people are a lot of times mobile, not only at home, but out in the field?
Well, the good news is you already have all the data you need. It's just in the wrong place. So what we find is, so for example, it's not unusual to find that a rep has created an opportunity on the 1st of January, added one contact to the opportunity, and then closed it on the 2nd of January. But when we look at the mailboxes and the calendars in the organization, it turns out they've been engaging with this company since September. And they engaged with 7 people through the sales cycle. And the momentum or engagement they had was, remember, we're scoring everything out of 100. Maybe their engagement was above 80 with certain stakeholders during that sales cycle. And that's what helped them to win. So by connecting to the data at the source, we're able to associate all of the activity and contacts and relationships the business had on deals that closed, won, and lost in the past. And then we can use that data to benchmark the deals from the past and highlight risk in the live pipeline.
For those of you that are only listening to us, we have a cat butt and a tail on our screen. It's kind of funny. It's not Guy. It's definitely Lisa. I closed my door to keep my critters out, and I'm laughing.
That's Poppy. She wanted to be featured on the podcast today with Guy.
Guy, and I don't mean to get technical, but this is the last kind of nitty gritty question I'll ask you on this, but some of the communications these days are, for example, like just yesterday, I was messaging back and forth over LinkedIn with one of my contacts. I get the email and I get looking at the calendar and I get listening in on those Zoom or team calls. Are you also trying to capture some of that social interaction over other platforms?
Yeah, look, we're interested in all the signals that lead to revenue. So, it's not unusual to have a business that might be having a free trial. So knowing how often someone logs into that free trial might have a big influence on win rates or what buttons they push during the free trial as well. So the idea of revenue intelligence is understanding all the signals around the business that influence revenue. And the truth is, most businesses have got that data, but they just don't have it consistently in one place. So we're the only platform on the market that when you come on board with us, we analyze the last 4 quarters worth of data signals and try and give you understanding of the DNA of what good looks like for different types of deals in the business and help you build leaderboards of how the individual contributors are actually performing, not just during a wholesale cycle, but actually at every stage of the sales process. So yes, we're interested in understanding all of those signals. Different businesses have access to different signals out the box. And usually we go on a journey with them and connecting up more and more data points as we go.
Okay. So now we got all this data points, right, that we captured. Now I'm curious, what are some of the most important revenue driving signals, or what are some of the conclusions that you got from this information? Any surprises?
Plenty. For the listeners, they'll be able to download. We've developed a benchmark report, which those that are watching can see it. But if not, you can download it on the front page of Ebsta.com. We analysed 3.2 million opportunities last year, representing just over $37 billion worth of pipeline, and really trying to understand the signals that led to revenue over the last 12 months. Some of the insights have been fascinating, but if I talk you through kind of the 6 key points that I think every business is different, and you might have your own, every customer has their own specific signals that we're looking at. But the 6 that I think you should be thinking about in particular probably fall into these key categories. So number 1, think about your ICP. Okay. When we talk about what top performers are doing, we find that the top performers in the market have at least 30% of their pipeline built with ICP. Now, 30% doesn't sound particularly high, but in most businesses, you'll find that the individual contributors or the AEs are talking to anybody who comes in through an inbound lead. And we know that not all leads are equal. So making sure you're focusing on ICP really has a big impact on win rates. The second data point I'm a massive fan of is intent data. Now, there's a number of third parties out there that we've worked with. So you might be using something like a 6 Sense or a Bombora, and there's others as well. But and you may already have a load of kind of first party intent data. So the difference between first party intent and third party intent is that first party intent data is data you've got in yourselves. So people that have put their hand up and requested a demo or kicked off a trial or downloaded a bit of content. This is intent data that you've got yourselves. Third-party intent data is provided by other people. So if you can imagine, you start combining this with ICP, now you're targeting your ideal customers that are actually in market to buy what you're looking for, what you're selling. So if you've got 10,000 businesses you could sell to, but then there's probably only 500 of them that are actually in market today looking to buy what you're selling. So trying to work out who those, what companies fall into that kind of high intent category is really important. The third is working out which personas to engage with. So knowing historically which personas lead to the best outcomes, not just during the entire sales process, but if you can, trying to break it down by individual stages is really important. So what's really surprising is sometimes the sales cycles are shorter and the win rates are higher when you get a champion that takes you into an economic buyer rather than going directly to the economic buyer. So every single customer is slightly different, depending on what you're selling, how complex the sales process, how long it is, and so on. But by looking at the past, by understanding the data from source, we can start to understand which personas we should be engaging with. And we pick up things like job titles from email signatures. So we're able to really understand that certain personas are having a positive or negative influence on the win rates. The next one on my list is looking at the relationship score. So one of our USPs at Ebsta is that we score every relationship out of 100, and that score gets updated every day. So you can see not just where the engagement is today and who holds the relationship and when they last engaged, but you can see if that relationship is trending up or trending down. And that's beautifully useful in not just the sales process, but also for the customer success team as well. So knowing how engaged your customers are or individual personas are with different departments within your business, maybe someone's engaging a lot with the support team or the finance department. Maybe they've got a problem with one of their invoices. Knowing this information means that you're in a position of strength. And knowing who's holding what relationships, or if relationships start to trend down, means you can do something about it before they become a churn risk or before the deals end up closing lost. And to give you an idea,
need that for my personal life.
We find that win rates are up to 6 times higher when engagement is above 80 out of 100. So understanding the influence of engagement is really important. The other thing I'm a massive fan of is qualification methodologies. So salespeople, by definition, tend to be quite optimistic. And so what we find is that they have happy ears and they think they heard they've answered all the questions they need to get through a sales process. And before you know it, you've now got solution engineers involved, finance, legal, and you're starting to draw in all sorts of resources from around the business. Well, if I tell you that of all the data we analyzed, only 30% of opportunities on average that are open close one, and the 70% of opportunities that end up closing lost end up spending twice as long in pipe as deals that close one. Okay, so there's huge inefficiencies in the way that sales teams are operating. And so to minimize that change, your second best outcome is to close lost sooner. And being confident to do that is really important. So introducing a deal methodology is absolutely key. Now, different methodologies are right for different businesses. And from the analysis we've done, it didn't seem to matter too much which one you're using. But you have to be using some sort of deal methodology and qualification methodology before you allow an opportunity to lead discovery. And the best performing reps are consistent in their approach to some sort of methodology. And the final one on my list is time. We all know that time kills all deals. And so, for example, if your sales cycle is a 6 weeks sales process, if that deal slips by 50% of that time, so by 3 weeks or more, the win rate drops to less than 10%. So knowing that time kills all deals gives you the comfort to close deals off as lost a whole lot sooner, so that the team can work on something a whole lot more productive. But your numbers might be slightly different to someone else's. So doing the analysis on deals that have closed won or lost in the past is absolutely key to understand what benchmarks good looks like, and then using that to identify risk in the live pipeline.
So I have to ask, because this is a lot of analysis, is this something you help your customers to analyze, or is it user friendly enough that a sales manager could pull this all themselves, or both?
Yeah, so you can kick off a free trial at ebsta.com. And once you connected your CRM to the platform, and if you want to, you can connect the mail servers as well. You get all of these insights in real time. So the dashboards are all there through the console. And if you want, you can integrate. Our customers actually put this inside Salesforce or inside HubSpot, so they don't actually need to leave the CRM to see all these insights.
Okay, amazing. Amazing. And so in these with all the customers you're working with, which I think you mentioned over 400 customers, are you noticing any trends for predictable revenue per industry? Like, are there industries where predictable revenue is easier?
It's not necessarily that it's easier or harder. It's more about we all live in a SaaS world, and sometimes we forget that there's a whole universe out there of businesses that aren't in SaaS. And I think what's been really interesting for us is to try and meet the customers where they are. So you start talking to a traditional organization about revenue intelligence, it kind of blows their mind. So before you get to that, I mentioned before, we have this kind of base product, which we call relationship intelligence. And the beauty of that is it fixes the CRM data with a switch. And it takes away any burden of admin on the reps themselves, but there's no change management. No one has to learn any new buttons. It's just the quality of the data just increases. Once someone's seen that the power of fixing engagement in CRM, and suddenly CRM becomes a system of record, and people want to use a system of record because they want to leech off that data. They want to know who has a relationship with this account I'm trying to sell into. All of a sudden, it becomes used as much, if not more, than LinkedIn. And overnight, they start to see the power of data. And so step one has to be fix the data first. But the journey you go on is, once you fix the data, is to try and then understand what the insights are. Try and do the benchmarking, really understand what good looks like. And then, of course, once you fix the data and then you've got the insights, then it's all about consistency and process and workflow. And really, you need either an internal or an external change agent to really affect change within the business. But there's a lot that technology can do. A lot of the heavy lifting, for example, can be done. We talked earlier about deal methodologies, things like Medic or Band or Spice, and there's lots of them out there. We can actually use the AI now to pre-populate that for the reps, so they're no longer responsible for filling it out manually themselves. And so there's a lot of technology that the technology can do to actually alleviate the burden on the reps and leaving them to focus on what's important that a machine can't do, which is build strong relationships.
So guys, when you were rolling out programs like this, which we see when we roll out value selling framework, especially in a SaaS model, you're trying to get alignment across all these different departments. So I'm curious, when you're doing a project like yours, do you end up spending more time on the marketing, the sales, the product side? How do you drive that alignment on this go-to-market strategy? Because you're affecting so many things. So, I mean, for example, you talked about having, that CPI, the customer profile. Hey, that's one team. What personas we go after? Sometimes sales and marketing have different opinions. What have you found in that area, and where do you normally start?
Yeah, aligning the go-to-market teams is absolutely key. And I think what's really interesting is historically, marketing, for example, has been quite, historically, marketing was just responsible for generating leads. And then it was kind of a big revolution because they were able to generate opportunities. Well, we now see marketing are well placed to actually be responsible for the actual number. And the reason for that is that we've got all the data we need to understand what the conversion rates are likely to be from different types of leads. So if you've got a lead that matches your ICP and it's come in through a specific, a demo request, or someone's raised their hand and said they're interested in this particular product, the data will show the marketing team that actually if the sales team run the sales process correctly and engage with a certain number of personas and have a certain amount of engagements, then the win rate might be, 62%. But if the lead comes in through, they're downloading a bit of content and the intent score is not particularly high, then maybe the win rate will be 25%. And knowing that what the data points are telling the marketing team, the marketing department is beautifully placed to actually lead the charge for the go-to-market engine. And what's really interesting is that, of all the go-to-market teams that we have, marketing has been more data-driven now for a decade than any of the other departments. And so we're starting to see the VPs of marketing actually take on that kind of CRO role now more and more, because we're seeing that go-to-market is moving from being an art to a science, and you need a data-driven approach to that. So understanding the signals that led to revenue means that they can start to align the teams. And ultimately, while sales teams have historically kind of beaten up the marketing guys going, I need more leads. Actually, they don't need more. It's not about more at the top of the funnel. It's about small incremental improvements across the customer lifecycle to achieve a better outcome. And marketing is insanely well placed to kind of help the sales team understand the signals that have led to revenue in the past and hold them account to say, look, you should be multi-threaded in this account. We'd expect 5 stakeholders involved at this stage, and you've only got 2, right? We know that that's going to affect win rates. So come on, how can we help you move that forward? So I think, in the past, we saw go-to-market teams made up of marketing, sales, and success. I think that there's a fourth department now that is really starting to take over, which is RevOps. And a lot of businesses think they've got RevOps in their business, but the chances are maybe they've only got kind of sales admin. And I think there's a world of difference there. RevOps, salespeople and sales leaders tend to be quite short-term focused. They're trying to solve very specific problems right now. They want to get a deal over the line. RevOps is the opposite. RevOps is a long-term view. Think about RevOps as like going to the gym. Okay, doing it once is great, but it doesn't actually change, doesn't move the bar. And so the beauty of RevOps is if you can increase your win rates by 1%, every month, imagine by the end of the year, you've revolutionized the way the business operates. And the impact on the company isn't just, okay, we've got a few more deals in, but suddenly our growth has gone from, 16, 17% to 25, 26%, and the valuation of the business might have doubled. So investing in RevOps resources, whether it's an internal function or there's a lot of experts out there on the external side, you can actually really revolutionize and help scale that revenue engine. And that's really where we work hand in hand with those guys, because we're delivering the data points they need to understand what it looks like. And they're the change agents helping to affect that change.
And so I'm curious, because you've been talking about historical data and like that, the trends in the data. So is there a lifespan of a customer that is a best fit for this? Because I'm just thinking about if I'm a startup or if I'm a business that's scaling and I've got, multiple product lines coming out, or, there's more offerings. I'm going to have a services offering as well as a SaaS offering. Like, so kind of like that starting from scratch with data, like, is that still a good fit, or are you focused more on companies that have already got some historical data?
Look, of the clients we have, as I said, we have over 400 businesses on our platform. We do have some Fortune 500 businesses in there, but the vast majority of our customers are SMB and mid-markets.
Okay.
And the way we built the platform is it's very plug and play. That's why there's a free trial on the website. But yes, if you've got no historical data, then the only reason to invest in revenue intelligence is because you want to build that scalable revenue engine moving forward. And every week, every month, every quarter, you're building up that visibility. And really what you want to do is have a consistent approach to things like your deal inspection or your forecasting approach. And having that in a consistent way from the earliest possible point means you're well placed to start scaling as quickly as you get that market fit. So I think obviously the cost of a small business adopting this type of technology is all SaaS, so you pay per license, is a fraction of what it would be for a larger business. But I agree with you. Of course, if you've got no historical data, then you're not going to get that historical benchmarking. But before you know it, once the stuff's in place, you start to see the signals flush through anyway. And of course, we've got all the benchmarking of all the other customers that we can use as a starting point.
Well, that's a good point too. So like other customers in your industry that are around your revenue generating size, blah blah blah, you could say these are some industry benchmarks versus their personal benchmarks. I like that. And then so if I'm a company that has multiple lines of business that operate differently, can I have a version of Ebsta for each line of business so that the signals are specific to that product line?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the console, you have a drop down menu of all the different product lines that you've got. You can actually get all the analysis all the way down to individual contributor level. So we build leaderboards showing you how all of the individual contributors are actually performing across the business. So you can actually see where their strengths and weaknesses are. So Jane's getting a great conversion rate, but John's not. So what's going different? What is he doing differently to Jane? And really, we try and distill things down to what we call deal velocity. Or another way of thinking about it is kind of dollars per day. So if you've got Jane working enterprise deals and John doing kind of much more transactional B2B deals, actually you can look at them on the same graphic because we're trying to understand their average dollars per day and if that's trending upwards per rep or trending down. And you'll find there'll be different reasons and things that are influencing that. And again, the data's there. The data will set us free, right? And looking at the data, understanding the signals, which personas are helping us win more, and which ones are causing us challenges, means that we can all work together to win more. And it reminds me of another story of a customer where the marketing department really transformed their go-to-market team by actively, once we started showing them that they needed this champion of the CFO for this particular customer at a late stage. So kind of stage 4 or 5 of the sales process, the CFO needed to sign off their proposal. The marketing team was able to start marketing directly to that CFO kind of when you're at stage 2 or 3 of the sales process. So marketing's got a role to play throughout that sales cycle. Once you understand the signals, it becomes obvious what everyone's role is in helping the team win.
That's great. That's great. And so, apart from being data driven, which comes across loud and clear here, what other characteristics have you noted with all the data that you've got access to are a key or essential part of being a top performer?
Top performers tend to build more relationships than everybody else, not just in the
Right.
sales process, but in their markets. The top performers have the broadest number of relationships in the market, but they're also building the most and the strongest relationships in the business. So we find we know that relationships drive revenue. And so when you understand that relationships drive revenue, it's not surprising that the top performers are the ones that have the strongest and the most relationships. But they also have at least 30% of their opportunities with ICP. They're also progressing opportunities at pace. So normally we see progression through the stages, every week or two for the top performers, and they're not afraid to close deals off as lost if they start to go stale. So those are the kind of signals we see with the top performers versus everybody else.
It's funny, guys, just talking to a CRO friend of mine, Steve Fitz, yesterday, and we're talking about how reps today have gotten lazy and they don't do enough prospecting. And one of our good friends, Jay Litton, who's also a good buddy of mine, I pointed to him because he is a very avid prospector. And to your point, he belongs to all these different networks. So he's got this huge network of relationships. And it's not like they're all genuine, right? He's trying to help other people in different aspects, but it gives him access to much more of a bigger audience that might fall within his ideal customer profile, right? The other thing that I kind of thought back to earlier, we have all these interactions with folks, and generally sales reps, and we see this when we teach them our value selling framework, suck at capturing data. They suck at note taking. They don't. Good data goes in one ear and out the other. So in your system, I just want to make sure since we're listening into the call and we can hear this information, when the customer says we got 16 systems and it takes us 16 hours to do something, is your system capturing that and putting it into the CRM so we don't lose those little nuggets of data that fall wayside.
Exactly that. So we're the only system on the market that analyzes not just an individual call as a silo, but analyzes it as part of a sales cycle. So understanding the data in the emails, the calls, the meetings that are taking place during the sales cycle, understanding which stage of the sales process we're in, means we can take away the heavy lifting from the reps themselves and automatically log the qualification metrics as they're picked up. So understanding who the economic buyers are, what the challenges are that customers raised, any particular competitors that have been mentioned, understanding the buying cycle that they're going through, all of that stuff. Now, the AI can automatically pick up for you. So you don't need these independent, separate systems to do it. And you absolutely shouldn't be relying on reps to be an admin, because that's not what their strengths are. And in fact, it reminds me, the biggest transition I've seen this year is this move away from effectiveness to efficiency. Okay, we've seen so many businesses that have bought every bit of tech on the market, and the problem is, even with all of that tech, 4 out of 5 AEs are still missing quota in 2023. Okay,
Yep.
And it's just not sustainable. So it's not about spending more money on technology. If anything, we can rip a lot of this stuff out. Okay, and what we need to do is actually become a lot more effective over efficiency. It's not about being fast. It's about winning more. And the answer to that is in the data. The answer to that is bringing all of these signals together and helping the teams win more. And what's amazing is when you start to show the sales team these insights about how the impact of being multi-threaded or strong engagement, for example, during the sales process with particular personas, when you start showing it to them in picture formats, suddenly they go, I actually thought that already. Actually, yeah, I knew that. And suddenly it was their idea. And now all of a sudden they're on that journey and want to win with you. Okay. And so understanding what good looks like, and then looking for risk factors and diving into opportunities that need assistance and helping them to really go, look, normally we'd love to see one more stakeholder involved in this deal. Can you get another stakeholder? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I know what I need to do next. But really helping them by using the prompts and using the AI, if you're in a discovery call and the AI tells you haven't qualified the opportunity well enough, and therefore you can't lead discovery, you're only going to see that 2 or 3 times before you change the way you do your discovery. Now, all of a sudden, the system has prompted you because you want to win. You want that green light to say, come on, well done. You've qualified this opportunity well enough. We can move on to the next stage. And it's so much more effective than bringing a load of AEs into a classroom and dictating to them how they should do things, and then they forget it as soon as they leave the room. So let the AI and let the technology do the heavy lifting, and allow the sales teams to do what only they can do, which is building good, strong relationships with our ICP.
Guy, you're speaking my language. You were just talking about this yesterday as well. I mean, there's a NASCAR slide of different companies that organizations of different technologies and tools that organizations have purchased for reps. And the real truth is the rep can hardly know how to, customize a slide, much less how to use 10 different tools. And it's, and we're trying to get them to be more efficient and productive and everything else. And we just throw more junk on their plate that they don't understand and they don't use. So anything that we can use to really, truly automate something and give them real insights, I think is wonderful. And this kind of leads me to, obviously this is the part of this idea is to achieve more with less. What kind of results have you seen across your 400 plus customers?
Well, look, when call recording came out, we all know some of the big players out there in the market, right? And they're charging kind of well over $1,000 a license now for frankly, for call recording. And you don't need all this, you don't need all that expense anymore. The technologies are out there. And for me, call recording is a phenomenal feature in the world of revenue intelligence, but that's really what it is. It's a feature. And it's one of the pieces of the puzzle that we should be digesting and be aware of. But as a standalone siloed bit of technology that's outside of workflow, it's just expensive. And you just don't need to be spending that kind of money on call recording. So as I say, I think it makes up part of that bigger picture. And for me, the idea of doing more with less is effectiveness over efficiency. Okay, we need to stop this idea of just throwing loads of money at things and it's just going to fix it all. And we just need to focus in on what's effective. Because with all of the technology in the world, 4 out of 5 AEs are missing quota consistently. And businesses cannot operate at that level. It's just not sustainable. And so we have to fix that. And the answer there is, it's not a magic wand, but it's 3 steps. Fix the data, deliver the insights, and then implement process and workflow. Okay, that's the secret to doing this correctly. And you can't fast track it. But the good news is you can incrementally improve it, and you can get better and better and better over time. And you should be focusing on a couple of hero metrics, things like dollars per day or velocity of deals, really understanding your win rates. Okay, if we can improve your win rates from 25% to 33%, what impact does that have on your business next year? Right. And understanding that means that you can then justify the investment you need to make in that change. And that becomes the absolute focus. And the number of times I've had conversations with businesses that, I use the adage, I'm too busy fighting with the swords to talk to the guy selling the guns. Right. And we know all of that. Right. So just taking a breath, working out strategically what the outcome is we're aiming for, and then getting rid of anything that's getting in the way of that, and just focusing on fix the data, deliver the insights, and then implement the process, the consistency and the process and the workflow, so that we can start winning more.
So I'm curious, Guy, from your opinion here, like you've mentioned 4 out of 5 reps missing quota. So you've got 5 reps. 1 is hitting or exceeding quota. The other 4 are missing. Of course, you implement those 3 strategies. You fix the data, you deliver the insights, and then you build a consistent process. And you've got those reps actually consistently performing. Where does that overlap with actual sales skills, like training and sales skills? If you've got those 4 reps that are missing that quota, and they're consistently following the process, is there a layer of training or skill that goes in with that? Or do you believe from the data that as long as they're consistent, they'll get there?
I think it's all one and the same. I think we're talking about the same thing. It's the difference between training someone how to use a medic, for example, and having to manually fill it in, and still having medic inside your CRM, but having the AI automatically populate it and then give the AE a badge when they've won, when they qualified it well enough, right, and allowing them through. It's all one and the same. I think we could all spend a lot of time training people manually how to qualify, but actually, we know that incentives drive behavior. And so when they get that green light that says, congratulations, you qualified this customer well enough, all of a sudden they want that green light again. And so it's just, we're talking about the same thing from different angles. And really, it's about, there are certain things that the sales team can do that no one else can, that technology can't do. And that's about building trust, building relationships, and with the customer, right? Everything else, the technology can support. I think training obviously has a role to play, but it's more about that consistency is everything. And so understanding what the top performers are doing, the very best businesses have everyone achieving 80% of quota, right? But the more often than not, we find those outlying top performers, the 20% delivering. We saw 23% of AEs now are responsible for 86% of the revenue in a business. Okay, that's outrageous. That the rest of the business, they're effectively becoming they're a liability on and they're slowing the whole business down. So if we can start to understand what good looks like, the one consistency I've seen in all salespeople is they all want to win. So what we need to do is show them what winning looks like in picture format, make it really easy to digest. And once they see it, they'll own it and they'll want to win more. So I think generally I find that a lot of training goes kind of in one ear and out the other very quickly. But I think if you can actually build it into the workflow and into the process, consistency is everything. The number of times I've seen organizations that have different sales teams across different geographies working in different ways, achieving wildly different results. It's almost impossible to then implement small experiments across that business and influence and achieve change. You need consistency if you want to win. And it doesn't matter what baseline you start with, but get everyone doing things the same way and then make a small change. And if that change has a positive influence, keep it. And if it doesn't, get rid of it. But it's that consistent approach. That's what RevOps is all about. It's that long-term view where we're going to consistently make change and improve and get that 1 or 2% at every stage of the sales cycle, and we'll achieve exponential results.
Fantastic, Guy.
Carlos, it kind of sounds like they need a methodology or like a framework or something.
I agree. Yeah, this has been a great conversation. I'm going to flip it over more on the personal side to close this out. So, Guy, you've got some great insights. I love what you guys are doing. For you personally, what might be one of those missteps or mistakes you've made in your career that have taught you the biggest lessons that we can kind of learn from?
Keep it simple. Focus achieves greatness is probably my mantra these days. There's all sorts of directions our business could have gone in. And the way we've won is by saying no to more things than we said yes to. So really keep focused. If the number of times I have conversations with people, it's, I think of starting this, and I've also got this other thing going on, and I've got this idea over here. There's someone else out there that's doing nothing but X, and they're going to beat you every time. Okay, because when they wake up in the morning to the minute they go to bed at night, when they're in the gym, when they're always thinking about X. And if you're trying to do more than one thing, there's someone else out there that's going to beat you to it. So, Ebsta is a bootstrap business based in London, right? There's less than 50 of us in the whole company. And we compete directly with companies like Clary, like Gong. And these are businesses that have raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, why are we able to beat them? Why are we able to win? Because we've got absolute focus, and we know what we're here for and what we're here to do. And we can't have things, we can't do things in 100 different ways. Everything has to be consistent.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, we ask a few questions at the end of every podcast. And one is that as an executive yourself for a number of years, you've been a target for XDR teams, SDRs, BDRs, prospecting teams. And I'm curious, of all of the prospecting messages you've gotten over the years, when they're cold and there's no referral, there's no previous relationship, what would be something that an SDR could do in that message that would actually stand out to you and might even get you to respond?
I was looking forward to this question coming. So as well as being a data geek, I consider myself a student of sales. So I'm a huge fan of anyone who's in the sales world, and I'll always try and give everyone a chance if they do call. I suppose, first of all, I don't get as many calls as you might think. I mean, I get a gazillion emails, but picking up the phone is certainly a good start. And then recognize the fact that the person you're calling probably does receive quite a lot of those types of calls. And if you follow a standard format, they probably don't want to hear it. Okay. So being genuine really has a big impact for me. So, if you pick up the phone to me and go, look, I've just started this company. I'd love to tell you what it does. And if it's not a fit, fine. But if it is, I'd love to get your feedback on my pitch. Would you be open to hearing it? That would land really well for me because it's a genuine outreach. If you call me up and say, I've got 27, can I get 27 seconds of your time? I've heard that like 1,000 times. And I just get very impatient on that side. So try and be genuine, recognize the person you're first of all, pick up the phone because, we all know that things happen over conversations and building those relationships. And be genuine, right? Talk to the person at the other end of the phone as if they're a human. And I know you've been given a script, but if you try and touch with that person from a human way, you're a commercial leader that's run sales teams for a decade. I'm sure you've heard 1,000 sales pitches. What do you think of mine? I've only just started here, kind of thing. That's gonna ask. You're asking me for my input. Now all of a sudden, I'm engaged, and that works well for me.
I love that. Yeah, that's great advice. We're very big on authenticity as well. Well, Guy, as Carlos mentioned, we could talk all day long with you, but we've got to wrap things up. If there were people interested in learning more about you, learning more about Ebsta, what's your preferred method of communication?
Right. Well, first of all, you're all welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Guy Rubin, and I work at Ebsta. You can email me at guyrubin@ebsta.com. You can download the free Insight Report at the banner at ebsta.com at the very top. And if you want to kick off a free trial and you're a Salesforce customer or a HubSpot customer, there's a button that says free trial on the website as well.
Amazing. Well, cannot thank you enough for your time today, Guy. We know how valuable it is, and we really appreciate you joining us and having and sharing all your insights.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to the podcast coming out.
Thank you.
Likewise. All right, everyone, that does it for this episode. Please check us out at www.b2brevexec.com. Share this episode with your friends, your family, your coworkers, and you can subscribe through YouTube, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. And if you really like what you hear and you feel like doing us a favor, you can throw us a 5-star review on iTunes. I am Lisa Schnarr, and I am joined by my ever-charming podcast partner, Carlos Noche. And until next time, we wish you nothing but the greatest success.
You've been listening to the B2B Revenue Executive Experience. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.